Hey everybody, I'm Amber.
And I'm Maddie.
And we're
Witches Talking Tarot.
And today we are talking about generational curses and traumas and ending those because that's what we do here. I like it.
I like that. It does work, I think.
It works.
You know,
that's what we do here.
When we started to this episode, I just have to mention, I've seen a lot of people who are trying to break generational curses and their families aren't the biggest fans of that.
No, yeah, the older generations kind of tend to, and even the generation that you're in, right? Because you're trying to break it for the next generation.
Right.
But the generation you're in, you kind of get some pushback from because if they're not ready to accept those changes, you're trying to change this for your children and their children.
Right.
Or worldwide, all of our children, all of the future of this fucking world. And people who aren't ready to accept that, they give pushback. And you know what? Knee-jerk reactions are what they are. Other people may be like, oh my God, you're horrible. Okay, have your knee-jerk reaction, but think about it. Don't just have a knee-jerk reaction and react poorly. Have your knee-jerk reaction because it's human. You're used to a thing. You're not ready for that change. We just talked about transitions in our last episode. So you get shook. But then think about it. Let it settle in. See why you got shook. Listen to our shadow work episode. See why you got shook so that you cannot be shook about this thing.
Right, and I think that's
what I mean?
The older generation, because with generational curses, we go into the older generation, they get really upset about certain things.
Well, and they take it personally, and I get that because, the reason I said the thing about the knee-jerk reactions, that's me. I get used to a thing. I'm very about tradition. I get used to stuff. So I have knee-jerk reactions, and then I examine, why did I have a knee-jerk reaction?
Well, and
do I actually have a problem with it, or do I just have a problem with the change that it entails?
Yeah, I think...
And then we go from there so that we can accept the necessary change for everybody to be better and grow.
I think that the older generation as well feel threatened because it's all that they know. It's
absolutely
all that they know, and change is scary, like you mentioned.
Right.
But there's a couple, there's societal generational curses, and then there's personal family generational curses.
Yep.
I'm trying to think, do we want to start with our own personal ones?
Well, what if we start with the personal ones that are also societal ones? I can kick us off with, we were just talking with somebody about diet culture. My dad's side of the family might be a little bit bigger, and my dad was very much not, he is very appearance conscious. That is what I grew up with. I grew up with somebody who, wow, I don't usually talk about my family in this manner.
Sorry, guys.
I don't think my parents listen. Okay.
Is it okay? Is it too much to talk about?
No, I think it'll be all
I guess
right.
this is kind of a triggering episode, honestly.
Maybe
it's a little bit of shadow work for
Maddie.
Well, maybe it's a little bit of shadow work for both of us, because I've noticed when you and I do episodes like this, it is a bit of shadow work for us because we're talking it out.
Yeah.
We're understanding, learning things about ourselves, learning things about society. So it's a vulnerable episode.
It is. But I mean, that's what, having generational curses and traumas and then trying to break them, it is a vulnerable thing. You are doing larger shadow work. So real quick, generational curses are things that are occurring through every generation, whether it's a society or a family, and they're negative things. They're bad things for people in that society or in that family, even if the people don't realize it, okay? And when you are identifying those things and you're identifying them either in your parents or your grandparents or yourself with your own children, and you are choosing to behave differently because you realize oh, that's a generational curse and I'm not going to give into that. I want my kids to have better than that, and you're choosing to break that. That's what this episode's about. And I feel like we should just clarify that real quick off the bat, because I don't think we're going to get into those words necessarily again exactly. But so societal generational curses affect the larger part of society, and family ones affect just some families, but like in my family, a societal generational curse was diet culture. Like I grew up eating a lot of steamed vegetables. I grew up watching what we eat all the time. Like all the time we watched what we ate because my dad didn't want to be bigger like his side of the family. Like he full well understood that they were bigger and he didn't want that for himself and my mom. If they got what he deemed was too big, they needed to like diet and exercise. When my mom would come down to go out with my dad, he's so appearance conscious that even when she'd be ready to go out, he would look at her with makeup on and in nice clothes and be like, aren't you going to get ready? Because he expected more.
That's so passive aggressive as well.
It really is.
You know,
like,
I'm sorry, I don't want to say anything.
No, it's okay because this brings up a perfect point, and I feel like this is a way of breaking generational curses, in the way of identifying them, right, and still being able to maintain my connections and who I am as a person. And I've talked with my aunt about it a lot, and you know, I haven't necessarily talked to her about it as it pertains to like my uncle because I don't know that she could handle that. But the bottom line is, I know whom my family members are. I know truths about them. I know who they are, understand who they are, understand where they're coming from, in who and what they are. And I love them anyway. I do.
I'm gonna compare. Anyway. I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm about to be a dork, you know. Maddie's the fucking nerd, right? Let's compare this shit to Game of Thrones because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. True, you do.
It is true though. It doesn't fucking matter. You know your family, you know how horrible they are, and yet most of the time people will always choose to support their family. For example, Tyrion killed Jaime and like killed their father. Jaime still love him, you know. Cersei was a piece of shit and wanted to fucking like literally murder him. He still tried to save her. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Family is such a complicated thing, and generational curses absolutely fall into that fucking category.
They do.
It's so hard seeing a family member fall into generational curses.
It is.
And you know that's what they're doing, and you see the repeated pattern, and you try to talk to them, but you can't force someone to break a generational curse if they're going to fall into that category. One of the quotes, I'm so sorry, I'm going to quote you, who quoted someone else, which was an example of generational curses. Why an alcoholic and someone who doesn't touch alcohol at all. You know, why do you drink? My dad was an alcoholic. Why don't you drink? My dad was an alcoholic. It just, it's hard seeing a family member fall into that.
No, absolutely. And it's like, perception is a huge piece of it, and I don't know what else I was going to say, but it wasn't that important.
So
no, I was just going to agree with you. Like, I was just totally going to agree with you and throw something else on there.
What do you think?
But I didn't want to cut you off.
What do you think, Amber, allows someone to see a generational curse and want to change it? Because there are some family members that fall into that category, that know how shitty their childhood was and yet choose to, whether subconsciously, and I think a lot of it's subconsciously, I would like to think so, to continue that while knowing their childhood was shitty. Do you think it's like, do you think they just can't break that curse, and the person that does break that curse, do you think they're chosen? Or like to be the one to break that curse, like a spiritual healer in a way for that family? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So, I have heard that theory, and that does ring true to degrees, but I think that anybody who is just open to paying attention, right? Because like, there are a lot of things that we call tradition that we don't want to do. Why don't we want to do that thing that our families always did? Let's examine it. If you're willing to examine it, it's because you're willing to grow. You're willing to change. So I think like a big step in being the person or one of the people who's going to break generational curses in a family or in society are the ones who are willing to look at the why things happen, like, or why we react the way we do to them, like a tradition that we don't want to hold true to anymore. Like,
I don't remember what. Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, so like,
Sorry, I'm
so
sure they
yeah,
heard
no.
every fucking thing.
Probably because they're really good microphones. But if you didn't hear well, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like overstepping any comfort zones. But like, okay, the 4th of July. As a society, a lot of people in America no longer want to celebrate the 4th of July or Thanksgiving. Things
Right.
that honor stuff that we no longer find as much truth in. Things that we no longer find reasons to celebrate because we're seeing truths that say there's nothing to celebrate there, right? As a society. And in families, it's the same thing. It's like being able to look at the deeper truths of things, why we feel the way we do, and then be able to do something about it, which is another step, but along that same path.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there is something that rings true to somebody who is meant to heal things in their family. Is it just one person, or can multiple people hold that role? Because I feel like you might see stuff and this other person might see stuff different, and both things need to be healed. You know what I mean? So what do you think?
Okay, so I definitely don't think it's just a one person thing, but let me explain why.
Yeah, no.
Because I don't think one person can heal every single emotional or whatever trauma, generational curse. I don't think it's possible. I think it starts with one person and they heal a few things, and then their child heals a few things. I think it definitely is a thing for the long run. It's we just need somebody to get that start. I don't know if that answered your question at all.
I get you, because like I feel that in a way, like, okay, so I am very drawn to my mother's mother, and like I personally feel like I'm trying to do some work to heal her line, right? And not just because she's my mother's mother, right? But at the same time, because of that maternal link, she is my mother's mother, right?
She
like,
ultimately carried you.
Yes, exactly. And like I feel a connection to her mother, who ultimately carried my mother, you know what I mean? And like, anyway, like I feel that connection, and I feel called to like try and heal some of that line. And my daughter also, who is sort of a namesake of my mother's mother, because my mother's name was Ellen Rose, and I named her Rose-Ellen, which is like Rose Ellen, but not exactly, because I spelled it differently, but you know, kind of a namesake thing. And she also feels like drawn to my mother's mother and doing something about healing her line. And so I feel what you're saying about the generation thing, because at this, like, I don't feel like anybody else in my generation of my family on either side, my father's side or my mother's side, I don't think any of them feel called to, at least from this standpoint. Maybe from the Christian standpoint, which we'll get to later. But from this standpoint, I don't think any of them have felt a calling at all to heal any of the stuff.
Well, and a lot of people don't think there's anything to heal. They're not
exactly.
They don't see
because
it.
they don't see it. Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about before starting to film this episode is societal generational curses, and this is such a thing. I'm like trying. Where do we start? I think we should start with the manly fathers.
I was gonna say that too.
I really do, right? Because like, okay, first of all, before we go, I have to tell you though, in my dream that I had last night about you, you were getting the tattoo on your finger. No. Okay, it was like right here. It was.
That's so weird because like Gia does have a tattoo on one of her fingers on like, and Roz has tattoos right here.
Right here.
I wouldn't get a hand tattoo, I don't think, but I was gonna get it. I'm gonna have her do it up here. I think like this.
And
but
you
I'm
were
not
having
sure.
This conversation last night?
Yeah.
Part of me's like, did I accidentally astro project?
Like, I don't think so, because I would assume it was like far before you went to sleep.
Okay, maybe because
it was like 8 o'clock-ish at night.
I was
maybe
awake.
7:30. I was like, knock, knock, knock. Can I come in?
I just do that though. Like sometimes I just have dreams about things.
I mean, we've been in the same dreams,
right?
Before.
Exactly.
And I mean, like, shout out to Dustin. I I have prophetic dreams, and I had a prophetic dream with our friend Dustin from the Rewatch Recap, and Dustin can read and watch things, where he and I and a third person were like having a drink in a place. And like we have been talking, anyway, it doesn't matter, but like I also dream about the people that I'm gonna meet at events.
Right.
Like I will be like about to give somebody a tarot reading, and I'll be like, I remember you from last time, and they're like, I have never seen you before in my life.
You're like, I had a dream. They're like,
Yes,
okay,
and,
this bitch is
like,
fucking
no,
out.
yeah, like I had a dream about the guy that fixed Katie's key fob a couple years ago,
Uh-huh.
and that's the first one that I like know for sure I had a dream about that guy's face. And then I met that guy for the first time ever, and I was like,
Well, and the thing was, you were the one giving the tattoo, so if one of your daughters is like, here, Mom, try this, I will fucking scream.
I will let you know if that happens.
Please do! It's like, but anyway,
Anyway.
one of the because that totally has nothing to do with what we're
Right,
talking
manly
about.
men.
Manly
Yes.
fucking men.
So, first societal generational curse that we will talk about is the father telling the son,
The cat's in the
Man
cradle
up.
and the silver spoon. I'm sorry, but like straight up. Cats
damn,
in-
Maddie,
Oh,
that
I'm
song is so
It is
sad.
But it's true. Cats in the cradle. He's like, I'm gonna be like you, Dad.
And then he's like, my boy was just like me.
I know. And you have no.
It's so sad.
It
I'm
is,
sorry,
it
like,
is.
I can't listen to that song without fucking crying at the end when he's like, my boy grew up just like me.
I
And
actually
it's sad
really
as
love.
shit.
Huggies did a commercial. I think it was Huggies. Someone did
That
a
song
Super
is
Bowl
why I
commercial.
visit my parents so much.
So it was I think it was Huggies or something. They did a commercial and it was like the same song, but they switched it to make it like dads actually involved in their kids' life to promote that. And it
Yeah.
was so sweet. He's like, I had meetings, so I changed them, and I saw him walk today, and I was like, oh, that's better.
And it's like so great because I just saw like a little like article-y thing being suggested to me before we even like were doing this episode, so it's so funny, but it was like you know, you say what you want about gentle parenting, but like this generation of dads is the most involved
Right.
ever.
Mhm.
And it's not wrong. I mean, like, but like at the same time, like 80s dads were pretty fucking involved. Like maybe not all of them were, but my dad was. Like he made chocolate chip pancakes on his days off, and he grilled steaks on his nights at home, and he worked for restaurants. So we went out as a family a lot because he would trade restaurant vouchers for vouchers to other restaurants so we could go out to eat, and he would trade his restaurant vouchers to his restaurant for like movie tickets and shit so we can go out to the movies as a family.
Is that legal?
I'm pretty sure like they were his for promotional
Oh,
purposes.
okay.
This was
like,
the 80s.
Okay.
I'm
But-
just saying, like, I mean, like, it was, like, between restaurant managers and, like, hey, and, like, it was the 80s.
Well, like, okay, I'm going to use an example. It's not my family, but it's my husband's family.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to say any names, but great-grandpa was a fucking asshole. Great-grandpa was a fucking abusive asshole. And grandpa was an abusive fucking asshole. And I guess that's technically dad. Because he's old enough to be a grandpa. But he's he is a grandpa, but he's also like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
I
so
know
like
what you're
we got great grandpa for the generation younger than mine, and then
Right.
you've got grandpa for my kids' generation, and then you got dad for my
Right,
okay,
right,
you know
right,
what the
right.
fuck I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
same, same guy. But the point is, he was a fucking abusive asshole, and he raised an abusive asshole, and it fucking sucks how common that is. That
Yeah.
especially in that generation, because I
Yes.
would say like 50s and 60s. My dad's gonna beat the fuck out of me if I don't get home in time. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and then they're the same way, and it fucking sucks. Or like, you can't cry.
Right, you can't cry. You gotta man up, like walk it off. You can't be hurt. You're a dude. You ultimately are the man of the house, and you have to be like, you have to act like it. Or one day you're gonna be the man of the house, and you have to act like it. And it leaves men in this place of feeling like they have to be in charge in all situations, even
Toxic
when that makes them
masculinity.
wrong, right?
Right.
And like, damn,
What?
I don't remember, but anyway, like, it just leaves them feeling like
Well,
they
it
have
also
to be
feels
right,
like
or,
they can't cry. They
Right.
can't.
they
you
can't
know,
be human with
express-
emotions.
Yes, exactly.
Like-
because they have to be strong and tough. Because
Right. And then, like, there's the generation of, like, Gen Xers and, like, elder millennials like myself, where, like, we grew up in the society of women talking about how awful fucking men are. And, like, the dudes of that generation growing up hearing from the men, you gotta be a hard ass, you have to be in charge, you're the man. And then hearing from elder women, you're awful, you need to go away.
it just makes me feel sorry for them in the first place.
Yeah.
Because look, some of the things they be
Generation
doing
of
is
persons.
awful, and it should
Yeah.
go away. But that's what they were taught because
Right.
of the generational.
Yeah,
curses.
because and like some of them have it coming from both sides. Some of it is just from the men above them. But then I mean, women have the exact same stuff.
Women
but
in a different
stuff.
way. So like
Right, yeah.
essay. I'm not going to say it because I don't know
Right.
if YouTube will do it. But like essay,
Mhm.
for so
You know,
many
most of us have
generations
been
were
a victim.
unfortunately. And you got in the past, it was the woman's fault. And I say in the past, but it's still kind of
It's
seen
still
that.
a thing. Like
I worked with
the
a
red
motherfucker.
panty law, like or not law, but the red panty case, like.
Oh, where
Because
that bitch
somebody
was wearing red
panties, and so like the guy was found innocent because
This
her
happened.
panties were red. I can wear red panties for me.
I'm-
I could wear
I'm so
nothing
sorry.
but red panties, and that doesn't give anybody a right to anything. You know what I'm saying?
I have to bring this up because it
Sorry.
pops up on my
It makes me
timeline
angry.
in my memories every fucking year. And it makes me so mad. And it's not really related. I mean, it is related, but it's not. Like the red panty law. This nasty motherfucker that I went to school with, RAPEDG, I'm adding the G because, again, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Accent. Right, a woman who couldn't speak English. And he went through his court, and she was his friend, and they had been drinking, and he got away with it. Even though, according to her, like, what do you call it? She had all the signs of,
Like her grape kit.
yep. Not only that, he had teeth marks on him from where she bit him. He had scratch marks on him from where he scratched her. And they claimed because she was his friend, she came over there and she put herself in that position. And that it probably wasn't you know what, because they both had been drinking. And this happened 4 years ago, and I share that person's photo every time because fuck you, motherfucker.
Yeah,
How
that's
dare you?
fucking
And your
terrible.
piece of shit sister comes on there and says, well, she liked him. We thought they were dating. Fuck you
No,
and your
again.
family, you dumb fucking bitch. And
No,
I'm sure they're
no.
not listening, but seriously.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No, that is absolute.
But like you said, the red pant. Before that, though, like, it was women's faults. Like, you put yourself in that position, and what were you wearing? And so mothers are teaching their daughters, don't wear this, don't do this. What did you do?
Well, not just that, but like, okay, I, as a woman, was taught to park under streetlights. I was taught to carry my keys like they're a weapon in my fist. So if I punch, I'm not just punching, I'm stabbing with metal keys. I was taught to do so many things that men weren't taught to do. And like, I taught my daughters, and my mom was probably taught by her mom.
Right.
Because we have to be taught how to take care of ourselves, because other people aren't taught that we are people too.
Well,
I'm not
and
sure
so
where that
I think
you
where
know what
that
I mean?
line is, it's because men are taught, well, we're in charge, or they
Right.
used to be. Things are
Yeah.
changing nowadays, but they used to be for generations taught, we're in charge.
Sorry.
Women have to listen to us. We don't show emotions. We don't feel emotions, and that's where the societal generational curses come with, like, to a fucking like T.
Yeah, no, they
Yeah,
do,
head
because
on.
like they intersect with each other, and they actually cause more problems. and that's why they have to be gotten rid of. Like, you know, the women's lib movement has done a lot for helping, but there's still, like you said, that one case was only 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It
Fuck
still
that piece of shit.
it still happened last year where somebody's getting away with what they shouldn't have done. There was that kid and the dirt and the
Fuck you, Brock. That's all I remember was his name was Brock.
Yeah.
Fuck
I
that
just
motherfucker.
remember the dirt.
I remember his piece of shit face. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, and he got away with it. He got away with it.
Right, because like the judge was like, don't want to ruin his life because somehow in the society we live in, one of our generational curses, and I will say it's a generational curse because it's been this way since the beginning of the colonization of America. Men rule and women grovel.
And that's what they're taught. And that's why it continues to be a thing, yeah. Like, it's just, and I feel like it comes across as, for mothers, let's talk about mothers. Oh, well, they're favoritizing my brother. My brother can go out and be out, and his curfew's midnight. Mine's 8 o'clock. That's bullshit. My mom's, no, it's trying to protect you.
You're vulnerable in your mother's eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, your brother's less vulnerable in your mother's eyes because our society says he's going to be okay unless he's different somehow, right? Because like racism, that's a societal, generational fucking curse. Like
maybe I won't mention it. I was just going to mention
people that are taught, you know.
Yeah.
I mean
that was
a
generational
thing, and it's exactly it is a story of proof to show that people are taught to be racist, and that is learned 100%. And I mean,
I was just going to use the example where those
please tell us,
3 men were arrested, and I can't remember the details because it was so honestly horrific. I didn't let myself, but I'm sure if you're listening, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. A father, a son, and his son. I think it was either his son or the neighbor, but either way, it was definitely a father and a son. Ran down a black man, and they lynched him. This didn't happen that long ago. What was it, 2 or 3 years ago? Something like that. That is a generational thing. And I just,
in this day and age, can you fuck, like,
I
how the fuck is that still a thing? How was it ever a thing?
I remember.
But how is it still a thing?
Right. And I remember watching them get arrested, like, because it was all over the news. And I remember thinking, that fucking father, the grandpa, put that in his son's fucking head, and this is how that generational curse played out. Because he raised him to be that way. Yeah. What was great grandpa like?
Right.
And it was just
and I mean that's how I learned about racism. Because like, shout the fuck out to my parents, because y'all are goddamn awesome, even though you got your flaws. But like, I learned about racism from another kid, and they were told to be racist. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like,
right.
My whole world was shook because, like, I had never thought about that before ever. Like, I'd never thought about, like, disliking somebody because of the way they looked physically. Like, really. Like,
no,
that was my first introduction to it, and they were taught by their grandparent.
And it's so sad because it's literal brainwashing, because you're teaching a young child that this is okay. It's
and like,
just like,
I'd like to say to our people listening, like, you know, if you have this mentality or like thought process, you need to examine it. But I'd like to think that none of our listeners have that mentality.
Well, and one that I want to, I don't know if I should mention it because it's kind of controversial, but I do. I know, right? Like, it's all.
I realize this is going to be a very controversial.
I hope that's okay.
Once we bring the societal into it, that's fine. I don't care.
But it's like,
I mean, it needs to be discussed. It's never going to change.
I'm just going to wait to bring it up. But
so, like, do you have a generational curse in your family that you feel comfortable like.
I guess the
talking about.
toes thing, I think it's so funny. I love it so much. You don't love it too much when you're a kid, but it's not hurtful or anything. So great grandma used to pull grandma's toes. Grandma used to pull my mom's toes. My mom used to pull my toes, and now I pull my kids' toes. And you pull them until they pop, and then you just kick and you laugh and you kick and you laugh and you kick and you laugh because oh my God, stop! It doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't.
But
hurt.
it's just
I
like a
hate the
stop,
way
stop, right?
toe
And it's
popping
just
feels.
a thing that's just been so I didn't think it was a generational curse, but Amber's like, did you like getting your toe popped? I'm like, it was silly. Like, I laughed, you know what I mean? But like, I don't know.
I mean, like, just from the standpoint of, like, you didn't like it and he doesn't like it, and it's like, well, I guess it would fall more under generational curse than tradition, but, I mean, that's, like, that just depends on, you know, how much you guys enjoy it, like.
Oh, I enjoy it as an adult.
Yeah, no, I mean how much the kids enjoy it. That's what I mean, because, like, the breaking generational curses about making it better for them, their generation.
Well, and it's like, it's funny, like you laugh and you kick and you laugh and you kick, and I remember it being almost ticklish, but I can't remember if it's enjoyable or not. Definitely like a laughing thing. Like, have you ever been like, you've just laughed so hard because someone's tickling you and you can't fucking breathe, and then you have to like push them away and you're like, dude, you almost fucking killed me.
Yeah, no, it's
definitely one of those situations. Yeah, dude, because you feel like you're going to die.
Yeah, no,
like it's a torture thing.
You have no control over that situation because, like, when you're tickled, you're just trying to stop being tickled, and there's nothing else you can focus on, and then you can't breathe. It
is like there's a reason it was a torture thing because I read that tickling is the most used torture in things like mental homes and like for piece of shit nurses.
Because there's like it leaves no mark, but it's still fucking torturous. It's a control thing.
Yeah, like nursing homes and like mental institutions. Yeah, is that not fucked up? Because it doesn't.
Horrible. I fucking hate being tickled.
So one of the things that I was going to mention that I think is gonna be a little triggering for me, so I may not talk about it too much, but I am gonna mention it, is the man who assaulted me. His son was also arrested for child sexual assault. And I'm sorry, SA. Oh, I hope YouTube doesn't take us down. Maybe we'll you know what I mean? If that's okay, just because they do.
Well, yeah. The YouTube part is more difficult.
Oh, if you can't do it, it's fine. If you can't do it, it's fine. But like essay, and I can't. I can't help but wonder when I heard that and that came out. What about Grandpa? You're telling me it's just one generation to just 2 generations? You know what I mean? I don't believe that. I'm like, how far back does this fucking go?
Yeah. And
how much longer is it gonna go?
Right.
You know, and I would absolutely classify that as a generation. I don't even fucking know, man. Like, it's like, it just bothered me.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I'll say that, you know, you had mentioned it earlier, and I'll just bring it up now. You know, in LGBTQ culture, there are generational curses of, you know, living in a family line where it's unacceptable to be to be gay or lesbian or transgender or non-binary. Like, you know, you live in a family that's not accepting of change, and you know, even though you have elders in the family that are most likely one of the aforementioned you know, types of individual. I'm sorry, my husband's like in the background looking for something. I don't know, it's slightly distracting. Sorry, guys. But like, generationally, it is not accepted, and so multiple generations in the same family line don't feel comfortable coming out of the closet. They are not able to live their truth, and it's a family thing.
You know, I watched a Dr. Phil.
Same thing, right? Same thing, guys.
I watched a Dr. Phil episode about a transgender son.
Tarkies.
Oh.
Oh. My car keys?
Any of
Yours? Yeah. Okay, wait, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. We're back. Okay, so anyway, it's just like, you know, in my family, whether there are any other individuals who are members of the LGBTQ community, I'm the only person who is openly, and my children, but you know, of my generation and former, I'm the only one. Even though there's possibly others, and I'm not going to go any further.
Well, and it's like, how far back does that go? Because you go back to the 50s and you couldn't, you know what I mean? And we had to marry and have wives and or have husbands and have kids. And then we've got it just... Anyway, the Dr. Phil episode I watched. Sorry, guys. We had to pause it.
We had to pause it
and then get back. But the Dr. Phil episode that I watched was a transgender son. He was transgender, male to femme. And he was talking to his...
Sorry, I don't mean to keep doing that.
He was talking to his mom, and she told him, you know, it's like you got the female traits and I got the male traits, because she herself was conflicted, but she would never admit that out loud. She would never... And she felt really, like, betrayed that he said that on TV, obviously. But it's like... he broke that generational curse that she wasn't strong enough. I shouldn't say strong enough.
She wasn't able because of the time she lived in. Because that is one of the positive things about the times we're living in. We're seeing a lot of these generational curses coming to light from a societal perspective. And there's a faction of people who have a lot of pushback to it. And, you know, like I said, it's understandable for you to have that pushback if you're one of those people who has a knee-jerk reaction and it causes you to have some pushback. But just like examine it. You're not being personally attacked. If you have always been like a decent individual, you're not necessarily one of the people who's being mentioned in, you know, whatever societal thing that you're like, change. I can't handle it. Like, I get it. You're always allowed to grow as a person. You're always allowed to examine why you have those reactions. Because along with generational curse breaking is shadow work. Because you have to examine where those things come from. And sometimes it's a mentality. And if you can't handle the idea of changing this mentality that you were raised with, because that's how I was raised, well, examine that. Why do you have a knee-jerk reaction? Why are you not able to just see it differently? Why are you not able to be okay with this societal change? Because it's a change for the better. Everybody deserves to be treated the same as people. Everybody deserves to be able to say, I love this person. I am this person. This is how I want to live my life. And everybody has that right. No matter what, everybody should have that right. So if you have like a reaction to any of that, like, examine where that comes from. You don't have to be the enemy. You can grow and you can understand why you need to change your way of thinking, even if it was always this other way before. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say breaking generational curses is not for the weak. It is very, very rough work. It's very rough work. You lose a lot of people. You see a lot of people fall down that same generational curse. And I want to talk about my generational curses as well, but look, I don't know who's listening. I don't want to... I as of right now don't feel comfortable coming forward in the public to discuss them. I hope that's okay.
No, that's fine. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, with generational curses, it's examining the harder parts of life.
It is.
And, like, we don't have to tell you guys all about that which we personally deal with for you, hopefully, to understand how to examine your line, you know, and also, like, societal generational curses
are for everyone.
Right,
literally everyone is involved in societal
and, like,
generational curses.
Family generational curses can be something as simple as we always eat this fucking horrible fruitcake because it's great grandma's recipe, but nobody likes it, and every year it's a waste of time and resources.
I love that though. Like, so for me, again, generational curses comes with perspective, like
Right.
you said. So for me, it wouldn't be a generational curse. It would be an awesome tradition. But for my
Right.
kids, maybe they're like, fuck this. This is a curse. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. And it's like, if everybody hates doing it, well, then don't do it anymore. You know what I mean? Because, like, if nobody enjoys it, then it becomes an obligation and it takes the joy out of it, right? So it's no longer like a fun tradition. It's an obligation that you don't want to do, and it causes negative emotions. And that, in and of itself, could be the breaking of a generational curse, because when we feel obligated to do things for our family or for our elders, not because we choose to, but because it's expected, and nobody's benefiting because nobody wants to eat the fucking fruitcake. You would, but like, I'm just using fruitcake as an example because everybody always talks shit on fruitcake. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I thought it was a good example to use. I mean,
I've
'cause,
never
like,
had fruitcake.
I
it
have
bad?
never eaten it. No, I don't fucking know. It's got cooked fruit in it. I don't fucking
Oh,
know.
you're right. I would love to try it. I would love
It's got
to try
like
to make it
candied
myself.
fruit or
I
gelled
know, like
fruit
it's like
or something.
hard or something.
fucking
I
know.
just want to try it because of the like stamina
if somebody
or whatever.
like if there was like somebody who was like, oh, everybody loves my
stamina
fruitcake,
or whatever.
I would try it. But like, I ain't buying one of those hard pound loaf cake, fruit cake things that the store has at Christmas and Yule. Nope, not for me. If Lolly made a fruitcake, I'd try that bitch. I'd try
Lolly,
that bitch.
make a fruitcake this
Lolly,
year.
make a fruitcake.
I
We'll
would
eat it.
love to try it. Are you
She
shaking
shook
your
her
head?
head. No, she legit
No?
did. Corey flicked us off. Wow, there's a lot of fruitcake hate, and that's why I used it as my example. But like, okay, like, let's be clear. If I had like my grandmother's whatever recipe, I absolutely would fucking make it, and I would love it. I was just using fruitcake as an example, and my family over
I
there
wonder if like
illustrated for us why I used that.
are there like some generational curses they don't even know it's a generational curse, like this recipe, oh my god, it's my grandma's, everybody loves it so much, and then you try it and you're like, that shit is a generational curse, throw it out the fucking window. It is horrible.
I wonder, like, you taste it, and as an enlightened individual, you're like, oh, there's bad juju in here.
Yeah, this is not good.
This is baked with hate, my darling. You need to throw it out. Don't start over. It wasn't a you thing. It was the thing. Figure out what I meant by that. Yeah, I know. Like, yeah.
I'm like,
There
is there
too.
anything else we can say about
Yeah,
generational
I
curses?
mean,
I feel
I
like
feel
there was
like-
something I was
yeah.
going to say, but I simply can't remember what the fuck it was.
So, aside from changing your behavior as it pertains to the
Oh,
action,
self-awareness.
Okay.
So, okay, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's what I was going to say, was, like, it has, breaking generational curses has a lot of self-awareness involved, which is where
Yep,
the shadow
the
work
shadow
comes
work
in.
comes in.
Because
Yeah,
there are
for sure.
times when I have yelled at my son, and I'm like, oh my god, I sounded like my grandmother. Or I sounded like my mother, or... And that's a funny stereotype you hear all the time, like,
Yeah,
let's
no,
bring up the
I am
Breakfast
my
Club
mother.
right here.
Yeah.
And we all turn into
So,
them.
yeah.
No, we don't have to.
We
you know?
don't have to. And I mean, there's certain traits that you're probably going to carry through.
Oh, absolutely.
And that
Then you-
doesn't make it a generational curse. Even
Right.
if it's a trait that you picked up from said parent that you don't necessarily like. That doesn't necessarily make it a generational curse. Like, is it a bad dealio for everybody?
I think it depends on what it is. Yeah,
right.
like
and
you said.
perspective does come a lot into it. But also, I was going to ask you, like, aside from just like, so when you identify a generational curse, and then you choose to change your behavior so that for the next generation, or even for those of your generation, or maybe you can even bring the former generation on board with said change, but with changing your behavior, outside of that, do you think there's anything that is like necessary to break generational curses, or do you think there are other ways to break generational curses than the changing of your behavior so as to
If we're talking
change
spiritually and you're a spiritual person, I haven't done this yet, but maybe I should, because I feel like I just got a universal download. A cleansing ritual for the whole line.
There's actually heathen ritual for exactly that.
Like I just got
It's
like
so
I
beautiful.
feel like
Oh
I
my
just got a
God.
thing. Maybe that person on your TikTok would call me schizo, but like
Dick.
right? But like no, seriously, I'm like
Yeah,
I
get
think
that. Doing
a whole line healing because
yeah.
I feel like that would be such a powerful. It would be exhausting. As I'm thinking this right now, I'm like,
well, no,
it would be such a powerful, intense ritual. I myself know I would be exhausted after doing that. But I think Samhain would be a great time to do this because your ancestors. And now I'm over here like...
And I'm all like, spring cleaning.
It could be spring cleaning too, like something, but it to me...
Well, because I work with my ancestors all the time. So
right.
like, and in the Slavic tradition, like, Easter, Ostara, that spring equinox celebration is huge. Healing. So like, I see that as like a very good time to do that kind of thing. And there is a heathen ritual that is exactly what you're talking about. I've actually seen a presentation on it by a heathen practitioner, and it was so fucking powerful.
Healing your past family line and then clearing the way to continue to heal in the future.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So as a spiritual person, if you are looking into that, I think that would be something you should look into. If you're a neurotypical, I don't know like what to call it. If you're a muggle, I don't know what else they could do other than therapy. I mean, and I don't mean that in a hateful way. I just mean, like, I think therapy would be a great way to look into that. I mean, also for spiritual practitioners as well. I just mean as, like, a spiritual thing to do along with.
Yeah, no, I get you. I'm just like, for a muggle, I mean, couldn't they work at, I know you're a muggle, but you could, like, also work at healing your ancestral line by, like, taking the time to get to know your ancestors, and, like, kind of reaching out, like, because even if you're, let's say you're Christian, like, so before we go, do we want to tackle that? So even if you're Christian,
I didn't do a lot of research on that like I was supposed to.
So what's really funny is, when I looked into, because we had both said, like, we wanted to do a little research on, I just went blank. Sorry, guys, it's late. On
Christian generational curses?
Well, not Christian generational curses, but just generational curses as well. And you said you're going to look more into the Christian one. When I just did a basic Google search, all I found was stuff on Christian generational
Yes,
curses.
exactly.
But, like, even if you're a Christian, you can reach out to your ancestors. They were Christian too, probably. And if they weren't Christian, then I guess you would be working on your fucking Christian generational curses thing, because, like, part of that generational curse is, from the line point of Christianity, is, like, both your formers and your futures need to be practitioners of Christianity so that your line stays clean, essentially.
Right. I'm using my phone to Google because I didn't do a lot. So one of the, like, Exodus 34:7 says, God visits the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and the fourth generations.
That was one of the things that came up.
So it's like, God does not hold you responsible for something someone else does, but to understand the Lord's words to... Okay, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, no, basically, it's kind of how you summed it up to me earlier, which was, like, for Christian generational curses, there's a huge thing about generational curses in the Christian belief system, and it's basically, if your ancestors were not Christian, then, like, that is going to be, like, you're going to be punished for that. So, like, you got to work on that as a Christian. Mm-hmm. You got to, like, work on them. I don't get it, but, like, you got to make sure your kids and your grandkids are Christian to heal your family line.
Well, and this is
which, like, doesn't make sense to me, because, like, if you're being punished for your formers being not Christian, like, how does that work? But anyway, this wasn't to pick on Christianity. I was actually just saying, because, like if you're Christian, you can still, like, reach out to your ancestors and, like, try to commune with them and, like, try to heal those generational curses within your own family line in a way that would be in line with your religion, so as to not make you feel like I don't want to say this in a shitty way, but a dirty heathen is what came to mind, and so I'm going to leave it that way.
Well, and I'm looking at like this quote, which is a commandment. This 10 Commandment, the second one says, "Those in the community who worshipped idols would see God's punishment on their families as long as they lived, to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me. But those who choose to love God and keep his commandments would receive God's blessing to 1,000 generations." So I'm confused. And I say I'm confused because if your family member, your grandmother is a Christian, it says that no, your family will be blessed and blah, blah, blah for 1,000 generations, even if they're pagan, even if they're...
I'm gonna bet that once you become pagan, like, you lose that. I don't know.
I don't want to say it's weird because I don't
know. If you guys know, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, y'all.
Yeah, and hello to Victoria,
Melissa,
Death by DVD,
Pam.
Thanks for being our patrons on Patreon. We appreciate you. If you want a super spiffy shout out like they got, you can visit patreon.com/Witches Talking Tarot and get a shout out of your very own, as well as extra shit from your favorite witches. So if you want to find us on the socials, we're on X at Classiest Witches.
And I feel like you like that it's changed from Twitter to X because you can...
Every time. Every motherfucking time for us 90s kids out there.
We're also on Instagram at Witches Talking Tarot and Facebook at Witches Talking Tarot.
Thanks for coming to sit with us, Espel. Bye.